Hello, friends, and welcome back to our Smart Skills for Success series. Today, we're going to be talking about the specific thinking strategy of reframing problems into opportunities. So, reframing is about creating new ways of looking at a problem or a situation, generating new opportunities and ideas by shifting the approach, angle, or way of thinking about it. So, in my little photograph here, you can see there's a cloudy day, and in the middle of it, the people have found a way to see through that, to see literally the silver lining in the cloud. So that's normally what we think about, is the ability to see the positive when something negative may have happened. So our definition that we use at One Smart World is reframing problems into opportunities is a vital personal survival strategy for when you run into setbacks, problems, or apparent failures. You won't get rid of the problem, but it will give you new ways of seeing the hidden possibilities and potential. It will deliver you options you hadn't realized you have, and it is the most important creative thinking strategy to go to when you are experiencing tough times. So if you have your 40i in front of you, and you could open it up to the page with the graphs on it, you'll see Reframe is in the first four strategies. So it's a green strategy. So we think of it as a way of adding creative thinking to your life. So you'll see, if you look at the score there, so the number represents, just to reiterate, your preference for how much you like to use this. So we talk about if you have a low score, so something probably under 15 or 20, that's something that you don't really like to use or choose to use on a regular basis. And if you have a score that's upwards of 80 or 85, this would be one that you really like to use. So you can see in this situation, this person really isn't fond of using the reframe strategy all that often and prefers other creative strategies instead of using reframe. So if you are underusing, this isn't something that you choose to do quickly or easily. We do know from our long-term observations of the people in our database that it seems as though scores naturally dip during adolescence and go up over our lifetime. So it could be because when people are in adolescence, there's so much turmoil, so many challenges coming at them that they can become overwhelmed, and it's harder to use their reframe. If you do choose to want to work on your reframe strategy, you can learn to reframe the disappointments. It is something that you can learn. All of the strategies that we talk about are things that you can learn to increase if it's low, and perhaps use a little bit more litigiously if it's really high. And the more you practice reframing, the more easily you will be able to reframe. So the more you develop those neural pathways in your brain to think positive thoughts in times of stress or difficulty, the more easily your brain will automatically help you to think positive thoughts. One of the things that, if you are going to work on it, that we might recommend is just some simple gratitude. So reframing some things that we might sort of mutter to ourselves about, such as having to get up early in the morning. A reframe of that would be, somebody somewhere needs you. It's either your family needs you to do something for them, or you're needed at a job. There's a reason why you're having to get up early. If you've got laundry to wash, you can reframe that to be thankful you have clothes to wear that you need to wash. If you're putting in long hours at work, hopefully you're earning money and gaining experience as opposed to staying home and not putting in long hours at work. And if you're tired at the end of the day and you throw yourself into the bed and you think, oh my gosh, I'm exhausted, it could be because you've been physically active, which is also a very positive part of life. Some things to practice if you are interested in increasing your ability to reframe is to just ask yourself the simple question, what is the hidden potential of this? So if something negative has happened, just take a moment and ask yourself that key question. Purposely, try to look at the situation from different angles. So if you came at it from, other ways of seeing it, for instance, we had a store in our town that recently went out of business. It's too bad and unfortunate for the owners of the business. But one of the first things that I thought when it's a jewelry store was, I wonder if they'll have some sales on the jewelry. So I'm clearly not seeing it from the owner's perspective. I'm seeing it from my own perspective there. But I did quite quickly focus on the positives that might come to me. Another way of finding positives is to reflect on some negative life experiences that you've already had. So we've all got things that have happened that, at the time seem terrible. But if you can look back and you can notice the positives that have come out of that situation that perhaps may not have happened if, the thing had worked out. So I had a friend recently who had tried to buy a house and somebody else put in a higher bid than she did. She didn't end up getting the house that she really thought she wanted and was very disappointed. And it was extremely fortunate because a better house came on the market, closer to where she wanted to be, closer to what it was that she really wanted to have in a home. And she got it. She got it for a price that she was able to afford. And that would not have happened had she got the first one that she put the first bid in. So she's looking back thinking, thank goodness that didn't work out. Another way to practice would be if you're really stuck in a situation and it's seeming difficult and you just can't find a creative option or a way out of it, you can always ask other people for their perspectives, because it's always easier for us as humans to see the positives in what's going on with other people than sometimes it is to see our own situations clearly. So other people may be able to offer you an objectivity that you might not otherwise have. Another way to see it differently is just to simply give yourself time and space to reflect. So remove yourself from the issue, give it 10 minutes, 10 days, 10 weeks, whatever it takes. And often you will be able to find the positives. And look at it as a learning experience. So I recently had a difficult situation where we were trying to put on some webinars and I was in charge of the technology and it was disastrous. People were texting me in the middle of the webinar saying they couldn't see the screen. There was no sound. The pictures on the PowerPoint actually came out completely upside down, which is unheard of. And I was so upset. I thought it was, terrible. And Bob that I work with, who's extremely high in Reframe, was able to reframe it very quickly and say, well, this has been a really great learning experience. And we're not saying it just to avoid negative feelings. We're saying it to actually help find some positivity in it. So I did actually learn from that. And the learning was I need to find simpler, less complex technical platforms to use. So I never used that platform again. So that was my learning. Another way to help yourself in reframing is to actually pre-frame something. So before you go into an uncertain situation, think about what the positives could be. So if you have uncertain things, difficult things, I've just chosen a few here that most of us have to deal with at one time or another. So for instance, going to the dentist. If you do it, you overcome it, it's a little bit of pain in the moment and you can think, well, I'll have conquered that fear by going to the dentist. Going for a job interview, it seems difficult at the time, but the positive going into it will be, I'll feel more confident next time. I'll have one under my belt. I'll know what questions to expect. I'll learn from it. The next time won't be so scary. You can say to yourself after you've delivered one presentation, no matter how well it goes, you'll have gotten over a little bit of the initial stage fright. There will be a positive that will come of it. And if you're trying out something new, like a new webinar platform, you can say, I will learn from my mistakes. So by pre-framing, you're not being negative and you're not thinking, oh, this is going to go poorly. I desperately need to find a positive. You're actually approaching it and making it more objective. So going into it with a little bit more confidence and a positive attitude. So you probably will actually be more successful just because you are approaching it in a very positive way. So I was talking there a little bit about if you're low in Reframe, something that doesn't come easily to you, an appropriate use of Reframe. So usually this is around, it's something you are able to reframe, but you can sort of pick the spots when you're reframe. So you're able to find some positive in a negative situation as an option for moving forward. So just some examples: you didn't get chosen for a team, and you can appreciate the time that is freed up for you. So, as opposed to being, you can still be disappointed, but you can say, I appreciate that means that I'll have an extra 5 hours a week I'm not participating in that sport. Our relationship ended, perhaps not by your choice. You realize that the timing is good. It's better that it ends now than in a year's time when I've invested more time and energy in this. My example again of a housing arrangement didn't work out. Perhaps you realize that you felt rushed anyways, and by that one not working out, you'll have more time and perhaps better opportunity will come along. So those are appropriate uses of reframe. So overuse. So if you're really high in it and you do it really quickly, it is a good thing to be able to do it. I would say you just have to be a little bit careful. Often the strategies that we talk about here are not just used by themselves, they're used in conjunction with other thinking strategies. So reframe is better when you're using it with a little bit of tune in as well. So something negative has happened, you're really quick to reframe, you can quickly find the positive, but I would suggest that you listen and validate what others have to say about it before you reframe. Acknowledge that other people might not always cope the way that you do. They might not always move to reframe quite as quickly as you do. And if you're dealing with somebody that you sort of feel is a little bit negative, by you seeing the positives in the reframe and making these other creative suggestions, it doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to get the other person to come along with you in that reframe. You can't give other people reframe. I would suggest that it's something you use for yourself to get yourself out of difficult situations or find better options. But sort of forcing a reframe on somebody else may not be helpful. And also, you don't need to turn negative situations into positive ones all the time. There for sure are some things that can just never be reframed. So, life tragedies, really, really difficult situations, sometimes you just can't reframe those, and nor should you try. I would also suggest that you avoid these lines when you're reframing, because it sort of minimizes what the issue is. So by saying things like, oh, well, it could have been worse, or nobody's died, or look on the bright side. Another one I hear quite often is, well, at least this didn't happen. I was at a funeral recently, and somebody in the funeral home, in front of one of the family members who just had a tragic loss, said, well, at least they aren't suffering anymore. And I could just see the family member cringe because they're still trying to deal with their loss and somebody's trying to find some good in it. So sometimes it's just really not appropriate. So I have a couple of videos here to show you what it can look like.
What do you think the chances are of a guy like you and a girl like me ending up together?
Well, Lloyd, that's difficult to say, and we really don't...
Hit me with it. Just give it to me straight. I came a long way just to see you married. Just least you can do is level with me. What are my chances?
Not good.
You mean not good like 1 out of 100?
I'd say more like 1 out of 1 million.
So you're telling me there's a chance? Yeah!
So that was one of my favorite movies of all time, Dumb and Dumber. And not that that's a dumb thing that he did, but he was very, very quick to reframe there and found the opportunity. Here's another good one.
What?
Having your car stolen is terrible, and it feels like you'll never move past it. Oh, I hope no one's waiting for that. Luckily, Intact Insurance is there to help you get back to what's important. One sec. It's Intact Insurance.
Oh, Intact.
At least you don't have to pay for parking.
Yeah.
Too soon?
Yes.
Oh.
So in each of those cases, you see the person was pretty quick to reframe that difficult situation. And the second one, he was aware of the fact that perhaps his reframing didn't land too well with that person. So just to make it clear, I know there's talk at the moment about toxic positivity, and in our societies, there is a huge emphasis on being positive, on accomplishing a lot, on always being achieving. And we're not talking about that. We're not talking about invalidating the human emotions that we all experience. We don't want Reframe to be false or contrived just to stop people from feeling negative feelings, because many of us have a hard time sitting with negative feelings. So we always want to quickly turn it into a positive. That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about, we know reframing and finding a positive in something won't change the thing that's happened. But there is usually more than one way to see a situation. Just logically, there is a different way to see something, a different person's perspective, another angle. This strategy will help you to think your way out of a difficult situation. You can be bothered about a troubling situation and reframe it in a proactive way at the same time. So we're not saying, don't have those negative thoughts and feelings, but please try to find a creative approach out of it by, flipping it on its head and just seeing it in a different way. So just in conclusion, the appropriate use of Reframe, using the strategy well while being sensitive to others, will empower you to act in a proactive, constructive way, seeking out creative ways to work around obstacles. So I hope that's been helpful. And if you're faced with a difficult situation, you've got some tips there for how to reframe. And you can see the benefit to using it in your own life. So please take care of yourself. Look after your mental well-being. And if you're interested, you can follow us on LinkedIn and Twitter at One Smart World, or our YouTube channel, One Smart World Academy. So thank you very much for your time today and for joining me. Bye-bye.